Why are you here?
Yeah.
Well, we've always been very open and transparent about inviting journalists like yourself, esteemed journalists, news organisations, to come and visit Huawei. I think there's lots of misunderstandings, lots of misinformation out there about what we do. So it's always great and welcome to Huawei when news organisations come and talk to us face to face.
All right, pick one. I know you're in touch with, and you travel a lot. You're just back from an event in Mexico City. Pick one misunderstanding. If you had to say, here's something about Huawei that the people in the United States, generally speaking, are getting wrong. What is it? I
would say that there's a huge misunderstanding about the type of company that Huawei is. Huawei is a privately owned company. And more than that, it has a very kind of unique ownership structure in which all the employees have an ownership of the company. Okay, so it's kind of a company that's held in trust for the benefit of the employees.
Mm-hmm.
There is no real connection to the state in China. We are part of that thriving private business sector. So I think that's probably fundamentally the biggest misunderstanding.
That there's no connection between Huawei and the Chinese government, no direct connection.
There's no direct connection, there's no ownership, there's no percentage of shareholding that's part of the Chinese state.
Now, the questions that have been brought up when accusations have been made against the company, mostly now from the U.S. government, have centered around things that might happen in the future. Of course, there's been back and forth for years between you and other companies about intellectual property, but a lot of that's been litigated in the courts and talked about and what have you. Most of the current questions seem to be about things that could happen, that Huawei could be used to facilitate spying. So what do you say to people who look at Chinese law, for example, the National Intelligence Law of 2017, and they read through it, and it says it requires organizations and citizens to, quote, support, assist, and cooperate with the state intelligence work. People read that and they say, well, if the Chinese government came and asked for data from you by law, you would have to provide it. What do you say?
Okay, so I think that there are several issues around this. I mean, first of all, Li Keqiang, who's the Premier of China, has made it very clear that this law does not apply to Chinese equipment manufacturers. So that's the most important first issue.
Who does it apply to? It applies to other companies?
It applies to companies that hold and curate and manage data in China. Okay, so even that law does not apply beyond Chinese borders. So for equipment manufacturers like Huawei, it doesn't count at all, and that's been made very clear by the Chinese government. Secondly, I think my colleague Andy Purdy has explained many times in American media that Huawei doesn't touch the data. Okay, it's managed by our telecom partners. So there's no way that we can manipulate or touch data and send it anywhere. Whenever Huawei, if it has to go and fix and maintain a network, there are very strict rules about how we do that, and everything that we do is logged.
Can you explain it to me a little bit? I want to understand, to the best of my ability, the actual technology. Say in the future, because a lot of this is about the rollout of 5G, 5G has been implemented in a country, and now Huawei is going to update that technology and is rolling out an update. As part of that update, wouldn't there be access to the data? And then if that data was asked for, you would have it in-house?
No, essentially we are producing physical hardware products that we supply to our customers. We would work with the customer to build out the network. So this isn't even a hypothetical, it's something that's happening right now. So we are in many countries, we operate in over 170 countries around the world. Many of those countries are now deploying their 5G networks. And so we work very closely with those partners to build out the hardware. But at all times, the telecom partners, customers, are completely in charge of all the data. There's no need for us to touch any of the data at all.
There's no need to, but I just want to be clear on this point, and then I want to move on to some other things. There's no need for you to, but could you?
No, we couldn't do it without the permission of the telecom company.
Could you do it without their permission in a hypothetical, if the government asked you? Is it technically possible?
It's not, to my knowledge, it's not technically possible.
Not technically possible.